So welcome to This Is My Story. Hey Faisal, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. Well, we're gonna get straight into it because Faisal has an incredible story to share. And just if you are kind of taking notes, and I know this is kind of one of those. This has been one of those series where, like taking notes has been. Sometimes there's been stuff like, you're like, I definitely want to write that down because that's a really interesting point about prayer, or that's a really interesting thing that God showed you, some revelation. But often it's just nice, isn't it? Just to like listen to the story. But if I was going to give this particular story, as it were, like a subtitle, I quite like subtitles because they help kind of like frame everything. I would call this, This Is My Story, a prodigal story. So I kind of want to sort of frame everything around there, and I'm not going to read it just for the sake of time, but I do really want to encourage you, when you go home, there's going to be lots of scripture today because Faisal loves the Bible, so lots and lots of scripture, but I do really want to encourage you to go to Luke 15 and read from verses 11 all the way through to 32, because that is the story of the prodigal son in the Gospel of Luke. So I think that will be really, really interesting for you just to sort of hear that. But as I say, without any further ado, Faisal, I think it would be lovely to kind of like go on with. Now, I've got some questions. Obviously, this is just to kind of like help us sort of like not get through this. That's the wrong way to put it. Just to help us get through. No, this is just to help kind of like shape what we're going to talk about today. And so, as I say, I'm just going to use those questions. But like, if something else kind of occurs, we'll just kind of like, or the Holy Spirit leads us, we'll definitely go that way as well. Okay. So, I'm going to start from this point of view, Faisal, if that's okay. Now, when we talked about this together, I know that you come from a Christian background, Christian parents, all the rest of this kind of stuff. So tell me a little bit about what was your experience of Jesus growing up?
I'm just going to start off by saying thank you for giving me an opportunity to just to testify, because I know this is not my story. This is for everyone here. And before I start, if anyone has to write something throughout the sermon, you can just write it if you want to. I grew up in a Christian family. We used to, since 2029, and we used to kind of like, I was so small, so I didn't know what was going on. So I just, took it the way it was. I went with the vibe. So it was a place of communion, a place of fellowship, a place of praising, a place of praying, like literally praying. So sometimes I would look at my mom praying and be like, what's going on here? Yeah. So also, I thought about it. I was like, throughout the years, I got to understand the purpose of an altar. The purpose by then, it was divine intervention. Yes. It was basic for our neighborhood, for our friends, for our family. Anyone who would come in was literally welcome to just come in and pray. And I'm just going to introduce like verses. The first one will be Hebrews 10:24 to 25. I got to understand why this was actually happening throughout the years. It actually says, let us consider, 24, let us consider how to stir up one another and love and good works. And the 25 says, not regretting to meet together as it is a habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. I got to understand why this was happening by actually going in the Word and meditating. And then in Matthew 18:20, it says, for where 2 or 3 people gathered together in my name, I'll be there. I'll be amongst them. I got to understand why this was happening throughout the years. Obviously, I grew up with my mom was deep in spirituality. and my family, all of them. But getting to understand, like I was 9 years old, getting into that zone, I didn't understand what was happening. I was like, maybe it's friends, it's eating food. I always, way towards the food thing to eat, And then the second thing would be the opportunity to learn piano. So I was 9 years old. The next thing I know, my mom is coming from work. She has that big thing behind her car. I'm like, what is that? It's black in color. So I peep behind, and then it's a piano. I'm like, hey. I'm like, okay.
We've all experienced that, haven't we? Like, we're just waiting for our mum to come home, look outside the curtain windows. Oh, look, my mum's brought a piano home. Never happened. Carry on.
Yeah. So now I'm like, what is this note? So I'm trying to point each, and then fast forward. So I was 9 to 10 years, and then I slowly started to learn piano because I was very curious. I was like, those buttons are so many, I need to tap on them. And then also my younger brother. I have a younger brother who's also like got introduced to play guitar. So we used to go back and forth. What's better? Is it guitar or piano? No one won by then until now. So yeah, that was the story.
That's your bringing. Amazing. Yeah. So yeah. So obviously your story of growing up is very much growing up in a Christian home. You're surrounded by prayer. You're surrounded by praise and worship. Yeah. People meet regularly in your home. You've learned to play piano by this point. And I seem to remember you sharing with me, like, there was a moment there where, like, one of the people from your group had to kind of go away, and they sort of like, they turned around to you. And what was that moment? What did they say in that moment when they were going to leave? And you'd obviously been learning piano from them. What did they tell you to do?
Well, before they left, he's the same person who actually taught me piano. He was like, now it's your turn. I'm like, what do you mean it's my turn? I thought you were playing every week. He was like, now it's your turn. I'm like, I'm not ready for this. Because we used to play by ear, so I started playing by ear. So I didn't have like a laptop or anything. It was a long time ago. So now I remember the first kind of gathering. I went on the piano, they started singing. I'm looking at the piano. I'm like, what's going on? So hopefully I started jamming. And it's always this story of you are next. So when God selects you, you are next. Kind of like he's ready. He knows that you're ready. So yeah, that's how I went for it. Yeah.
Oh, no, definitely. That's really good. And I love that. I love that kind of, almost like that framing device you're talking about. Like for you, you've often experienced like God sort of working in the background in your life. But often you've been like, I'm not really sure what's going on, God. But God is always at work. So obviously you then start playing like these gatherings. You're playing music. You're accustomed to being in that worship space. But then it comes time for you to go away to university. So you had a really interesting conversation with your brother at that point. So I think it was your younger brother. You were saying like. Tell us a little bit about that.
A little bit story, just a background about my brother.
Yep.
He's my younger brother, but he passed through so much in college. So God let him learn throughout the years of kind of like having a fellowship with him, having a relationship with him. But for me, he hadn't yet started. So I remember I was at church in C3 before we moved. And then he called me. We're actually in a fellowship, so I grabbed his phone. He used to call me on FaceTime. I'm like, bro, I'm busy. He's like... And then he's like, bro, I need to tell you something. The first point he told me, he told me, join the train. In my brain, I'm like, bro, I'm at church right now. What do you mean about the train, bro? Are you okay? So let me rush to Isaiah. Let me rush to Isaiah 11 and 2 to say why he said it by then. I actually got to understand this. So now the word says, and the Spirit of God and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. and the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, and the spirit of knowledge and the fear of God.
Yeah.
So, and then let's rush quickly to Matthew 11:15. And it says, he who has ears to hear, and let him hear. But now you can guess what happened to me. Did I hear or did I not? You guys did I hear or did I not? I did not hear.
He did not hear.
I did not hear. So he told me by then, I was like, okay, the train, yeah, I love the train, yeah. I really love the train, so what next? He's like, Faisal, I'm being serious, join the train. He was like, I'm like, okay, yeah, I will, yeah, of course, yeah, I will. You know when you say yes, you're going to do it, but you don't do it? That was me by then. So, then I'm going to tell you why I got to understand this after this happened to me. Throughout the years, I got to understand that I did not understand this. The second point is, at that time, I didn't understand because of the world's distractions, because a lot of things were happening around me. Obviously, relationships, friends, and all these things made me not understand. So, but let us read 2 Corinthians 4:4, and it will let you know why I didn't understand. In their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel and of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. And this was deep, because now I got to understand. I was like, so something was blinding me because I didn't understand. You know, sometimes someone can advise you and you're like,
yeah.
He literally wants you to understand. He literally wants you to be saved. He wants you to not to get hurt, for you to, again, realize that you got hurt. So, okay, let's go to 1 Peter 5:8. And they say, be sober-minded, be watchful. An adversary, the devil, pulls around like a rolling lion, seeking someone to devour. So by then, when my brother was advising me, the devil was, after I hung off, because I didn't understand, the devil was literally looking for me. He was like, how can I tempt him even more to literally leave the church? That was his motive. Because by then I was in the church. Now he wants me to draw me out of the church. So that was his move. So then the last one will be Isaiah 44:18. They know not, nor do they discern. He has shut their eyes so they cannot see, their hearts so that they cannot understand. That's me in the word. So just to round up the second question is, I was going through a lot. Like, you know, when you don't have there's a word in the Bible, it says, tell me a friend, I'll tell you. Mm-hmm. Pastor, please correct me.
What do you mean?
Tell me a friend, I'll tell you. Oh, the same friends flow the same feather, something like that.
I'm not really sure what.
So yeah,
but I know what you mean. Like that,
Yeah.
that idea of like if you surround yourself with people
Yeah.
who are growing in faith,
Yeah.
then you will grow in faith too.
Yeah.
But if you surround yourselves with people who actually are walking away from the faith, then they are going to actually lead you away from the faith.
Yeah.
I mean, many people have said it like this. They say, show me your friends, I will show you your future. So that's the often kind of preacher quote from that kind of idea. But yeah, it is throughout the Bible, this idea of, so Proverbs talks about, like, as it were, sort of like bad company corrupts good character. So you may have, just to kind of like frame all of this. So you've had this great start in life. You're surrounded by people who are of the faith. Even what's happened with your brother has brought him to like an alive faith for him. He's not just resting on his parents' faith. He has a faith for himself. He's then come up to you because he recognizes you are not on the train of faith. You are definitely being distracted by what the world has to offer. And so he comes to you and says, Faisal, you need to get on the train of faith. Jesus is waiting at the platform for you, and he is saying, get on the train.
Yeah.
But you're like, no, thank you.
I don't know what you're saying.
I don't know what you're saying. And I find that fascinating. Isn't it fascinating that sometimes, like, God can speak so clearly through someone else, but at that moment, we're just not ready to hear it. And like you say, even understanding as well that often, like, we need to understand as Christians, like, the devil is just as active in trying to stop us from understanding and keeping us blind. And therefore as friends, we need to probably be even more active in, just like helping. No, look, come on, let me rescue you. Let me help you. I need to help you kind of get this. So, as you said, you now kind of like leave the nest and you come all the way from home here to Sunderland. There's university, there's societies to join. There's lots of different things to do. So, but I remember you saying you still had this kind of like ringing in your ears of your brother, you need to join the train. Yeah. So you're like, okay, let's give church a go. Yeah. And you came to church like a couple of times, and it's kind of like, hey guys, it's cool, but obviously not really necessarily. Like you're more going out of tradition, and this is what you do. Yeah. Like, what was it that then kind of like stopped you coming to church then?
Yeah, before I kind of like proceed to answer that question, is I just want to go a little bit behind to just show you one more verse about why I kind of like decided to leave the church. It's in 1 John 2:5-9. It's called the love of the world. Second one is called the love of the world. So I'll show you in 1 John 2:15-17. Perfect, thank you. Guys, you can help me read this because I don't wanna let you guys kind of like me reading the whole thing alone. So 1, 2, 3, go. Let's go.
Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him.
Wow.
Or her.
Just a small thing.
Yeah.
A small thing of let's go out for a club. It will be fine. I'll apologize the next day. I'll come back in the morning. It will be fine. Wow. So the Father is saying, having 1%, then the love of the Father is not in you. So you're actually an enemy of the Father. It's not the best place to be. But then, so then to answer your question, the fourth question is, fast forward when I got to understand this, how God spoke to me, is He allowed me to go in this journey. It's always a journey because remember the word says, all things work together for
good.
So He allowed me to go on this journey. Everyone has a journey here. So it's not God kind of like pushing you away, letting you do things. No, He's just allowing you to learn. And then He was allowing me to learn to listen to His voice. Mm-hmm. Even through that time I was going through, say, mad things, He was still there with me. He was like, because I would come back home, I'm like, this thing is so bad, I went out so bad.
Yeah.
I still had that thing in me. It's still wrong. So the first thing is I can't serve two masters. That's the first thing. I can't serve two masters.
Yeah.
We see this in 1 John 2:15. Just 15. 2:15. Mm-hmm. Yep. Say, do not love the world or the things of the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. And also in James 4:4.
A lot of Bible, guys. Love your Bible. That's good.
1, 2, 3, let's go.
You adulterous people, do you not know that the friendship with the world is an enmity with God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God.
Wow. I was going on a race of... Sometimes when I get to understand this, it's like, how graceful is God to let us kind of come back to Him after all these things. He's like, bro, you're an enemy. You're my enemy, but I'll allow you to come back. Second one is separation. now this is when he's pulling me out of the world now. He's like, oh, so you have decided to get out the world? Okay, I'll separate you now. So the second point is separation. Now let's see Psalms 1:1. It's directly, he hits me on my chest. He hits me directly. So guys, you're going to help me with this one. So Psalms 1:1, it says, Psalms 1:1, it says, Pastor, please help me.
Yeah. Oh, the joys of those who do not follow the advice of the wicked, or stand around with sinners, or sit in the seat of mockers.
He's like, so I want to let you understand why I want to pull you out. And are you ready? So I was like, yeah, I'm ready. So please, you have to leave that circle. You have to leave that. You have to leave that relationship. You have to leave that friend, not to cause chaos, but like kind of like, I need you alone. I need to shape you. I need to round you. I need to make you, because the word says, every day we walk to be more like Jesus. Every single day. It's not a race.
Yeah.
He slowly teaches you to be like him. But how can you be like him if you're still in the same circle like the rest? So you need to be out of that. You need to be outside of that circle. So the second one would be the third one would be. No, before we go to the third one, let's read Jeremiah 1:5, please. Yes.
Yay.
So 1, 2, 3.
Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations.
So it doesn't mean I'm a prophet. It just means just God knows us directly. Yeah. He just knows our gifts. He knows why we're here. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing you're gonna do outside God that is gonna lead you to the end line. Whatever you do outside His will, it's not right. Then you won't be content. You won't be happy. Because you might have money, you might have all these things, but you're still coming home and you're still...
You know you're far from God. Yep.
So...
it's so fascinating as well, if I can just kind of interrupt for that. Because when we were talking about it together and we were talking, it was what made me think of the prodigal son story, because I think you were sort of saying to me that in terms of your story... one of the things that had pulled you away was obviously the club scene and the club culture, but then it was a relationship with a girl. So and she wasn't a Christian. You knew she wasn't a Christian, and so you're pursuing this relationship in this moment in university, and of course that's then pulling you away from Christian community, and everything you share in there is almost like reflections afterwards. But I love what you're saying there, because as we were talking about it together, I remember you sort of saying it was like a moment where you suddenly just woke up and suddenly you realised almost what am I wasting my life on? I'm chasing this, I'm chasing after this. And like you say, even though for a short space of time you're enjoying some of those things, there's always that thing of you come back home. And it's your heart is ripped, because because it's almost like the seed of what your parents have placed on the inside of you is still there. Yeah. Of I am a child of God. I belong to God first and foremost. Yeah. And yet here I am, again to use the prodigal son language, in a world far, far away from home. And then you have this moment. Luke 15, verse 17 says, when he finally came to his senses, literally, the original imagery there is when he finally woke up. It's he'd been sleepwalking all of his life, and in that moment, he suddenly wakes up and he says to himself, "What at home, even the hired servants have enough food to spare, and here I am dying of hunger." So there you are, kind of in this torn place of suddenly realizing, what am I doing? I'm dying of hunger. But there was something quite specific that happened in the relationship with you and the girl. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that to kind of help us kind of understand what helped you wake up?
Well, it's a long story, but I'm just going to break it down a little bit. Obviously, when you leave home, your parents don't tell you about being unequally yoked. They don't tell you these things. maybe some of your parents, maybe they can tell you that. Obviously, my parents were like, he's grown enough to understand, but no. And then when it happened, obviously, when you love someone, you do whatever it takes to be with them. But then, I'm just gonna say the last thing.
That's fine. That's fine.
So before it kind of broke off, it was kind of God telling me to kind of get separated and come back to Him because He caused the whole thing. He caused the whole chaos. He caused everything to happen. So I was with her. She went back home. So when she went back home, I was like, no, why did you go back home all of a sudden? She was like, I need to handle things. I'll get back. And then my mom came here. So my mom came here in the right moment. She came here. The right time, she just came here. And then when she told me that she told me that, how did I get my visa so quickly? Until now, she doesn't get it. And then when she got here, a few kind of days, my ex came back as well. When she came back, she told me, I don't want to do this anymore because my parents don't want it. In time, my mom was here as well. So in my head, but then in my mind, I was like, I didn't see this coming.
Yeah. Yeah, because
I didn't see this one coming because everything was good.
Yeah.
Who caused this?
Yeah. Because I remember you saying to me that, like, she'd gone home. She's from, I think you said, a Muslim background. And so she'd gone home, essentially, to, like, talk to her parents about the fact that she's dating this guy who's not Muslim. And so, like, her parents had basically forbidden her and said, you can't date a guy who's not Muslim. So she comes back to Sunderland, breaks it off with you. And it just so happens that your mum is there at the same time. Like, say, it just so happens, which is not a just so happens, a bit like you've been saying already, it's the grace of God. The grace of God is like He has your mum there at that moment when your heart is broken and when you're feeling like really lost in your journey and you're like, I thought my life was going to go this one way, but it's not going that way. God, what's going on? And I think, and like you said, interestingly in your story, like God had been speaking to you. Even whilst you're with her, God's been speaking to you, kind of like drawing you and saying, it's time to come home. It's time to come home. And you're like, no, it's fine. It's time to come home. But you're like, no, thanks. But then obviously all of this fell apart. How was your mum a real support in that moment? That was
actually on my mind because I just want to say you can't explain the love of a mother and the love of a dad or a love of a brother because they knew they knew that decision, they didn't go with it, but they were still loving and kind and gracious. Because if you don't have a family like that, it's a problem for you. Then you're just going to push them away. But they were still graceful. They were like, it's fine. If it's meant to be, it will be. But my mom just knew it won't be. But she was like, it's fine, we'll accept you, you'll be all right. So that's just a small thing. Let's move on to to understand why God was doing this. So the third point is journey to knowing myself. So now He's taking me a journey, kind of all these things were happening to know myself, to understand who am I and why am I here. There's certain things you kind of can't know or get to understand unless you're in it. So it's always good to get through these experiences. I like it. I always like it that way because I get to understand these things and also grow from them. So that's the main important thing. I'll say, so the fourth one, it says, He is all I needed. So he was still telling me, you're all that I need. In other words, He was teaching me that I am all that, I need Him more than anything, relationship, parents, because He loves me more than my parents. He loves me more than my relationship. He loves me more than anything. So He was kind of teaching me that it's not because of a relationship or a friendship or anything. It's about the love of Him succeeding all things. So let's get to understand Ephesians 4:6, why He was telling me this. Guys, are you still here?
Still here.
Say amen.
Amen. I thought it was Ephesians 4:6 or 1:4. What?
From 4, from 4. So he says,
Okay.
even as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and blameless before him in love. Let's move to 5.
Yes.
He predestined us for an adoption to himself as sons through Jesus Christ, according to the purpose of his will. And the last one says, to the praise of his glorious grace, with which he has blessed us in his beloved. So this was all his grace. He's telling me, bro, you can't be worthy enough. You can't make yourself pure. No one can. You can't. Even if you try to walk like this, you can't. With his grace, in other words, you have to walk to him for him to guide you there. You can't go to purity, to walk you to Jesus. You have to go to him. Though the way you are, you're dirty, you're this, you're all this, you have to walk to him the way you are. You can't, because he's the one who kind of makes you leave these things that you're into. So, so the last one will be on this question will be understanding. Before we go there, let's read my favorite verse. Psalms 121, from 1 to 8. So I just want us, please, let us read this together. It's my favorite one.
Okay, we'll do it just for you.
Yeah, please. So let's go, 1, 2, 3.
I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade on your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore.
Wow, that's good, right? That's amazing. So this is the fourth one. So the understanding is, I am made strong in my weaknesses.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
In my weaknesses, I remember once I was like, God, this is too much.
Yeah.
I fell on my knees. I was like, help me. When I'm talking like this, I'm not talking on my basis. Sometimes you fall on your knees to be like, we need him. Sometimes it's too much. The pressure is so much. The work environment is so much. The kid situation is so much. So we understand the verse of this is, where does my help come from? It comes from him. So if anyone goes through a tough time, just remember this, please. Psalms 121. So yeah, let's go to the next question.
So next question, we're going to go to number 6. Question number 6. What was it like coming back? What was it like coming back, like, to church? So obviously you've gone through this stage, like the relationship's broken down. Your mum's been there to really support you, but also God's been really gracious in that moment, and God's really been working. If it's all right, because of time, I remember when we were talking, you had this crazy moment whereby you've got essay finals coming up, then your computer, you've done most of the assignments, but there's just one left to do. Your computer breaks, you lose your assignment entirely, have to buy a brand new computer, and then you're like, God, help me. And then you type in your assignment, you send it off, and then it comes back, and that assignment is your best assignment.
Wow.
That's the one that receives like the best grade out of all your assignments, and that's the one where you're in this place of like really leaning into God again, where you're sort of saying, God, you are enough. God, you're everything. So what was it like? Because at this point, obviously, you realize you're knowing, and I know that you know Chris quite well. So for those of you who are part of our church community, you'll know Chris. I know you know Chris quite well, and obviously God is saying, Faisal, it's time to come back home. It's time to come back to church. What was that like, coming back to church that first time? Talk to us about the conversation between you and Chris, because that was quite funny. Go on.
I think I'll just kind of get for number 5 and 6 at the same time.
Okay,
altogether.
cool.
So what happened in life that made me understand why I needed Jesus again?
Yeah.
The first point is going through trials and tribulations. We can see this in James 1:2 quickly, and then it say, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials in various kinds." And then also in John 16:33, "I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you may have tribulation, but take heart. I have overcome the world." And then the last one will be Romans 18:28. It says, "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for their good, and those who are called according to his purpose." So just to answer that small understanding why I needed Jesus again. It's through all these things I was going through.
That's really good.
He was teaching me.
Yeah. So the trial wasn't to break you. It was to bring you back.
Come on.
And it was to actually reveal more of his grace and his love to you.
Come on. And to know myself more.
Oh, that's good.
So now the second one will be knowing his grace and love and mercy. So remember this point in your head. Knowing his grace and love and his mercy. So when you're reading this, just put yourself in it. So let's read Matthew 18:12. What do you think? If a man has 100 sheep and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountain and go in search for the one that went astray? Wow. Isaiah 6:5. "I said, who is me?
Woe is me, yeah.
Who is me? For I am lost. For I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King and the Lord of hosts." Let me just talk about this word. Isaiah 6:5. This happened to him when he went to the heavenly realms. And then he understood that, I'm around these holy angels and the elders. Who am I to be here? That's when he understood that I am a prophet, but I have unclean lips. He's a prophet of God. He's not just a normal human being. He's a prophet. If you got understood that I have unclean lips, that's when you understand his grace and mercy to kind of give us all these things and knowing our weaknesses.
Yes.
And then also, let's read, the last one will be Psalm 63, 1 to 11. I love Psalms. It's David. It's David.
It's because you're a worshiper.
So, oh God.
You are my God.
Can we read this together? It's Psalms. Say 1, 2, 3.
Oh God, my God, earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh faints for you, as in a dry and weary land where there is no water. So I have looked upon you in the sanctuary, beholding your power and glory. Because your steadfast love is better than life, my lips will praise you. So I will bless you as long as I live. In your name I will lift up my hands. My soul will be satisfied as with fat and rich food, and my mouth will praise you with joyful lips. When I remember you upon my bed and meditate on you in the watches of the night. For you have been my help, and in the shadow of your wings I will sing for joy. My soul clings to you. Your right hand upholds me. But those who seek to destroy my life shall go down into the depths of the earth. They shall be given over to the power of the sword. They shall be a portion for jackals. But the king shall rejoice in God. All who swear by him shall exult. For the mouths of liars will be stopped.
Wow. So now, keeping this word in mind, I'm going to tell you now a story now. I just remembered a vision right now. When I had a vision, I always have visions. One of the visions I had, I was graced to have, is to meet the Son of Man in my dreams. I felt like he was my brother, but he didn't look like my brother. And then he just told me, come here. He gave me a hug. Literally right away, I woke up with tears on my face. That's how much you understand the love of God. Just being just around him in a vision. It's not real life. It's a vision. I'll tell you the story about my assignment. I was doing my assignments last year, and I was going through a lot of things, including what we just talked about, my friends and my relationships. And God knew that. So he was like, I'm going to show myself to you that I'm your God. Because he knows me. He's like, sometimes the things you do, I'm just going to prove myself to you, just to show you my love. So I was doing my assignment, put up my work, ready to submit my work. And then my laptop just goes shut. All of a sudden, it just goes shut. I thought I was going to submit in 2 days. Goes shut. I panicked. I was like, I'm failing, and I don't want to come back in summer.
Yes.
So I called my mumsy. I was like, oh, you need to help me. She was like, what happened? I was like, my laptop just went shut all of a sudden. She was like, so now we know what we're going against now. Because when the devil realizes now you're coming back to Christ, he does whatever he can to come against you. Be like, you just can't live like that. You just can't live like that. Who are you? So I bought the laptop by grace. And then tried to work on my laptops and everything. So it was a MacBook by then.
Yeah.
So I'm doing my work and everything.
A real laptop.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, my work vanished again. All of a sudden, again. All of again. I sat down on my floor. I called my mom on FaceTime. I was like, I'm done. I was like, I'm done. What is he doing? And then something told me. Because remember Psalms 121.
Yeah. My help comes from the Lord.
Where does my help come from? I literally, I felt like it was a strength kind of pulling me. I was like, I'm going to do it again. I typed my work in less than hours. I don't know how I did it. Submitted my work. Remember other works that I'd done, submitted and everything. I was confident in those works. I thought I was going to get good marks. God said, okay, you thought you're going to get good marks in that one? I will show you myself in this one. So when the results came in, I was in the office. I checked my results because I was scared of this one. I did late. And then I was like, okay. Almost first class. I'm like, maybe the rest is going to be super first class. I checked the rest, low. But I still passed. But it was still good marks, but the other one was top.
Yeah.
I was like, it's impossible. Impossible.
Yeah.
I run, I was like, Mom, check this. She was like, that's your God.
Yeah.
That's your God.
Yes.
So, Chris is my friend for a while. Before I came back to church, I was scared, I'm not going to lie. Because it's been a while since I went to church. And something always kind of tells you, before I came to church, it was the Spirit of God telling me to come back. I didn't just do it because I'd gone through the whole year of getting prepared to come back. That's how much since last year in April to this year. That's how long it took me. He took me to train me, to sharpen me, to go through all these things. Now to be like, you're ready. Now you're ready to go and serve your purpose. So I remember I was in my room, clear in my room. Because in my head, I didn't think of ever coming back.
Yep.
I never thought that, to be honest. I was just
No, that's
honest.
fine. Be honest.
I was honest because even sometimes I would have services online, but not kind of like God was seeing my heart. He first saw I was praying, I was reading the word. Now he was like, now since you're ready to do this, now you're committed to the church again.
Yes.
So I was sitting on my own table, chilling. I heard the voice, the Spirit of God just tell me, it's time to go back. I said, nah.
Who's ever done that? Like,
Listen.
the Spirit of God spoke clearly, and you're like, nope.
No.
Carry on.
Said, no. Even to show you why I even said no, I called, because the same voice that I know that voice properly. I always talk to them, like spiritual things, I always talk to them. When you get a mom who is very spiritual, you kind of like get to talk to them more. I called her, it's like, the Spirit of God told me to go back to the church. My mom said, so what are you going to do? I said, God will have to tell me once again for me to do it again. You'll have to convince me one more time just to make sure. Do you know what he did? Never joke with God. So I leave the shower. Everything, I'm still showered, everything I'm trying to put lotion on my skin. I'm playing chant music and everything. The whole room goes zip. The whole presence of God just hits me, says, Faisal, it's time to go back. I said, I felt like tears almost coming to my face. He said, it's fine. Call Chris. Go back.
So
I have something for you. Go back.
Yeah.
So now I call Chris. I'm like, bro, I think it's time to go back to church. Chris is like, what? Time to go back. He's like, okay, we'll go together to church.
Yeah.
Boom. So now I'm telling Chris before we come, like, what are they going to think? How is it going to feel?
No.
So I walk in, but not God told me, I have something for you to do.
Yeah, I remember you saying.
I had something for you to do. So I go in the first week, the second week, my friend used to play piano. We all know him.
Rico
now, it was during the time of where we were praising Easter time.
Yeah.
He comes to me, he taps my shoulder. He was like, Faisal, it's time for you to play piano now. The same thing that happened to me a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's time for you to play piano. I'm saying, bro, first of all, you're a legend. You play piano so good. Who can replace you? He's like, it's time for you to play piano. He kind of told me in a funny way possible.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'm leaving. What? You're not leaving. What do you mean you're leaving? You're going to come back. He said, I'm leaving forever. I could not. I went home.
Yeah.
I called her. I was like, Mom, I have something to say. Did you know that he told me to go back because he knew that I was going to minister? Mm-hmm. And he was going to leave.
Yep.
Just to tell you that it wasn't no one else, it was God.
Amen.
He knows the right time for you to go back. Not 2 weeks, just a few kind of weeks. Because, I even stood behind, I was like, what do I have to do? What do I have to contribute? He was like, stay there. He didn't even wait. So understanding that my purpose was here.
Yeah.
And he had to do whatever it took to bring me back. So let's go for the next question, please.
Amazing. We're very close on time.
Yeah. Only 2 questions.
So we're going to kind of need to unfortunately, we're going to need to sort of like wrap it up at this moment. But thank you so much for sharing your story. Because I think what you've so beautifully kind of explained there is even something as small as you are a 9-10-year-old boy and somebody in your church sees the gift of God on you and sees the curiosity of God on you and says, learn to play piano. That gets you into music. You then go on this kind of journey of, as it were, into music, into the club scene, all the rest of that kind of stuff. And then you come back to God, and it's that beautiful way in which, like you say, and I think what I want people to kind of grasp here is that when God calls us back, he doesn't just call us back for relationship with him. That's the starting point. He calls us back for purpose. Like you're just talking about there. He's saying, he's calling us back because he's saying, I've got something for you. And I just want to speak that over every single person here. God has something for you. Church is not about people at the front and people in a crowd. The church is the people of God ministering the life of God everywhere we go. And that means that God calls every single one of us to participate in this journey. And participate means that, we actually get active. We bring our gift, whether our gift is welcoming people to church on a Sunday, whether our gift is, and often it won't just be one thing. It'll be like, right, I'm welcoming people to church, but I'm also giving faithfully into the life of church. Out of, what I have, I'm going to give to church because I'm making that decision. But then it's also things like, I'm going to deliberately decide to become a disciple. Yeah, I know the time. I'm fully aware. Okay, and I know. But this is too important. And I just want to speak to maybe people who, in this moment, maybe you have had a season where like God's felt distant or you felt distant from God. I just want to say that today is the beginning of an opportunity to come back to God. Yeah. Like, I can't begin to say to you, Faisal, like, because I didn't know the backstory, but I still remember first meeting you, and I remember the man I met. And the man I met was exactly like you described. He was coming to church, but he didn't really want to be there. Whereas, like, since you've come back, just the grace, the joy, the love, the humility that pours out of you is a genuine work of the Holy Spirit and of God. And what it says is that for every single one of us, transformation isn't just something that's possible. It's actually an invitation for every single person here. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't experienced that, like, Jesus is not holding out on you. He's inviting you. And maybe today is like one of those steps of like, it's time to wake up.